welcome everybody to another episode of Hot Program. I am your host with the most, all the way from the East Coast, and as always, good people, I am in airplane mode. And now, a man who, when he was a Christian, cast out the spirit of masturbation by laying on hands. A man who needs no introduction. How you doing today, my one black friend?
I am doing very well. Thank you so much. And yourself?
Good, man. I'm actually excited to get down to some good old-fashioned counter-apologetics. Talk about some straight up bread and butter deconversion type stuff. Just want to clarify the title of the video. I call it Niddy's Deconversion for Dummies. It's because I'm hoping that it's Niddy's The Deconverted's Guide to Deconstruction, right? And that's what I'm hoping it is. I don't know if everybody remembers. Do you remember those big yellow kind of text you would get at the Staples or wherever, and they'd be like, you know, accounting for dummies or American history for dummies, right? And the idea was that it was supposed to be sort of a textbook for lay people that, you know, wouldn't require advanced experience or prerequisite training, that could get you through sort of an understanding of the topic and serve as a springboard for you to go deeper and further on your own. And I'm kind of hoping that that's what Niddy's series here is going to be, like a sort of a layman's guide, user-friendly, you know, recently or relatively recent enough to remember deconverted Niddy's gonna hold your hand and guide you through. It's also kind of interesting because I feel like it's maybe, I think of our community as like, you know, not even necessarily as big as something like Mythvision, but like a smaller, you know, like a smaller community, a little bit more off the beaten path than YouTube, at least right now, a little small village. And we're normally kind of a backwoods community. And by that, you know, if life, you're going through the main thoroughfare, right, and you're just getting off the Christian highway in the big city, right, when you sort of exit, you're kind of in like Christian-friendly territory, theist-friendly stuff. You're in holy Kool-Aid, rationality rules, genetically modified skeptic, holy Kool-Aid, right? That stuff that's like just for, you're just coming out, you need some high production value stuff that's really short and consumable, right? Then you might get more into like the debate space or, you know, the lectures or something, or maybe the call-in shows, right? Then maybe you can get into like a Mythvision where you start to go like deep into the academic weeds or whatever.
That's right, yes.
You don't really get to our neck of the woods till you're like, I'm kind of through a lot of that, and if I'm gonna stay in a space like this, I'm just looking for like some friends, some like-minded people to kind of chop it up with, and you're looking more the community thing, right? But I don't see a lot of people in this neck of the woods sort of going back to the beginning, right? Like going back and saying like, well, what would it look like if we tried to do our version of friendly off-ramping, right? Like, what if we tried to be, you know, make some stuff for people that are just starting out, or even maybe not starting out, maybe just even trying to figure out what's going on, right? As opposed to our stuff, which tends to be for people who are a little bit further along, I'm saying, right? So I'm hoping that's what this is, and that's why I call it Deconversion for Dummies, and I just want to make that clear, and I hope people, you know, we'll take that for what it is, and I'm excited about it, and yeah, let's jump into this.
Good morning, everyone. It's your host with the most, without the Holy Ghost,
Hey.
Niddy. And this morning, I am going to start a series.
Also, there's
called
a
The Deconverted.
there's a we're also trying to help Niddy out here. There's a link to his channel down in the description. If you're not subscribed to Niddy already,
Good idea.
go over
Great
there
idea.
and give him a sub.
Guide to Deconstruction, and these are
It's
going to be
under
my
co-host
personal
and
writings
mods gang.
on my experience and ideas about leaving my sincerely held belief in Christianity. I hope this series will be helpful to people. I hope this series will help people understand themselves and what they might be going through. So let's just do it. Dissonance. This is what you feel while trying to affirm a belief and experiencing an opposing reality. No matter what level of faith you possess, the experience is inevitable. Even if you are the most pious, committed, and sincere believer, the moment will come, the questions will flood in. How can this be happening when I believe it shouldn't? What or how can I be this when I believe I shouldn't? When will this feeling go? When I shouldn't have it. Dissonance is often mistaken by believers as doubt or as a whisper of evil forces. However, dissonance is your mental unrest of resolving contradictory states of belief and reality. Dissonance can even happen with good things that are yet contradictory. You can believe that you are blessed to be in love with two people, but you know you can't spend your time between both. The mental experience, while unsettling, is not because one decision of a partner is better than the other, but because there is just the tension of being unable to have both be your reality. More often, however, dissonance is the experience that is negative. Eternal glory and redemption in heaven is the supposed destination for believers. Their God promises an ultimate paradise, a good place full of love, joy, and peace.
Mhm.
However, there is no direct evidence it exists. Even those who report dying and returning give contradictory accounts of this place. Now the believer must choose. Do I find a way to maintain this belief in an eternal place of joy and paradise, or start to abandon it?
My one black friend, how much time
Yes.
do you think Christians spend thinking about heaven? Where do you think it
Oh,
it
this
fits
is one of my
into?
favorite topics. I think they spend almost no time on it.
Really interesting. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
it is. I really do think that. I think the idea. Imagine this. I say, let's think of it this way. Let's try to create an example. If I told you, hey, Pocket Locker, I'm a billionaire and I only do this because I'm bored. I really appreciate you. I get bored of doing fabulous stuff and driving orange Lamborghinis and stuff like that. So here's what I'll do. You never have to worry about money again. I'm going to set you up. I'm going to give you $10 million. I'm going to stick it in a trust account with your name on it. All I need is your full name, your address, and your phone number, and the bank will call you for the rest because they'll need your social security number and they need you to submit a W-9 to them.
Right.
And then I'll transfer the money. It'll be in a trust account. When you turn 45, that money's yours. You don't have to turn 60. Still be able to be young and do stuff.
Yeah.
But that money's yours. Okay. Then the bank calls you. They finish all the paperwork and they say the money is here. It's been transferred. My one black friend sent you $11 million. It's just a simple interest-bearing account.
Right.
It'll never be less. It'll never be worth less than that. It'll make so much a year at this interest rate.
Right.
Here's a little spreadsheet every year. Just plug in,
Right.
the interest rate for that year, and boom, you can tell how much money you're going to have when you turn 45.
Right.
But it's real. Like, the money's
Right.
there. Are you going to worry starting today, or starting the day that happens? How often will you worry about money?
Hardly ever.
Hardly ever, right?
Probably never.
You'll go ahead and take the credit card debt. You'll put it on a credit card. You won't even think about it.
Yeah.
You'll probably buy not a
Yeah, I
good
just
car,
mean like enough to make sure you get through to then, right? You want to make sure you don't like start. Yeah, but you ain't gonna worry. Yeah, exactly.
You'd probably go ahead and buy the things you wanted.
Yes.
You'd probably go ahead and do the things you wanted, suffer through the debt, and like, I'm gonna blow $1 million before I get there, but I'm gonna have a wonderful time.
Sure.
When you turn 45, you're like,
right.
you're sitting on $1 million in debt, but you're cool because the day you get your money, your $11 million is now something like $11.8 million.
Right.
And so what? You pay that $1 million off. You got your money. You can now go do whatever the hell you want that's legal.
Okay.
Mostly. So anyway, you stop worrying. You literally stop caring about things, some of the responsibilities you had.
Right.
It wasn't necessary. You had the comfort and the peace.
Right.
Right. So I was thinking about this today as I wrote to someone earlier about the ills of our society, how we still have the same problems we had 100 years ago, basically. That question that Trump supporters get asked, when was America great? And then they give an answer, and then people talk about the social ills that were taking place at that time. And they realize, oh, yeah, if you take away that, then everything was fine. But that isn't necessarily true, because if you just drag one person after another with a different ethnic background, they could probably tell you, oh, no, during that time, my ancestors or my parents or my grandparents were going through this in American society. And they realize it's the dream. They were sold the dream, not the reality. So heaven is the dream. All they have to do, now that they've become Christians, there's this idea that there's no more work involved. They're on cruise control. Jesus said, what did he say? Love one another as I have loved you. If you watch American politics and the people claiming to be Christians, that's bullshit to them. That's bullshit to them.
Right.
And they don't even know. Jesus said, sell all you have and give it to the poor. That's also BS. Right? It's one thing, one principle after another. This guy claimed this is how we should live. If you want to represent me, this is what you should do. They throw it out the window. Throw it out the window. Love one, what is it? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That one's utterly gone, because everybody wants to be the king, the queen, or the princess, or the prince, and the accountability for them stepping up, gone. Gone. Their opinion is automatically right. So heaven is just the destination. Jesus is the doormat. You wipe your feet on him as you walk in.
Right.
These people, one after another, would have a difficult time. And I've said this on the podcast before. The worst thing I could ever do to a Christian, worst thing I could ever say, is to ask them to describe heaven to me. They will have almost no idea. They'll say, oh, well, there's streets of gold. They'll remember that, even though it doesn't say there's streets of gold. The streets are like glass that are gold colored. You can see through them. They're not gold like a watch would be. Right. So they know, well, there's pearly gates. Well, what's in there when you go past the gate? What's in there? What's behind the gate?
Dude, I'm sorry. I just still do get the typical image of heaven sometimes, where it's like clouds, right? And there's gates, and but it's so funny when you hear somebody ask the question, well, what the hell's beyond the gates?
Yeah, what's that? What's up there?
Because they give us nothing beyond the gates.
They don't know. Because it's made up, right? I say this, and I wish you all could have known me back then. Some of you weren't born yet. I flew to Los Angeles from Indiana when I was about 23 years old, and it was my first time flying in an airplane. And I remember we probably were in flight for maybe 5 or 6 minutes, and I told the travel agent, I need a window seat because I've never flown on a plane before. She said, okay, I'll make sure you get that window seat. And I'm looking out the window as we're breaching the clouds, right? We're flying above the clouds. This is amazing to me. Off in the distance, the sun is coming up. And I said, loud enough for the person seated next to me to hear. I was saying it to myself, but they could hear me. And I said, I wonder where heaven is. Now that's very soft-hearted, humble, Christian me with the full expectation that somewhere up here, right? It's got, I can't see it, right? It's spread around the kingdom of heaven, spread around, and men do not see it. I don't see it,
right?
But I'm in the midst, right? I'm in the midst of it, and that was a wonderful feeling. But it was just a feeling.
Yeah.
Just a feeling. We should be able to talk to airline pilots who see a cherubim flying around from now and then, or an angel flying around now and then, if we agree with the ancient Hebrew concept, the ancient Christian concept of what heaven was, or the ancient Greek concept. At some point, someone climbed Olympus and was looking around. Zeus is not here. Hera is not here. Where are they? If we were told they're here.
Yeah, it was safe to say that they were beyond places we couldn't reach at the time.
That's right. And now we can go to the moon now.
Right.
We can send probes to Pluto and beyond, The Voyager probes are way the heck out there. They haven't found Jesus. They haven't found God.
Now, Niddy said something very interesting, which was in the chat, which is that his group thought about heaven all the time. We reviewed a video a while ago where Christians were kind of lights off voting about certain things, and somebody was talking about heaven, and I've heard people do this type of thing too, where they talk about it's almost like a desperation to live their lives. And they're frustrated with the fact that when they express how much they want to lose this life so they can get to the next, people treat them like they sound like they're suicidal in a way that's problematic. Like they resent the fact that they can't straight up tell people, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, why can't we just... and so the thing I'm revealing, like we were doing, so I think it may have been on the show, but it was like a thing where people got to say yes or no about certain questions, but they were hidden. Like their faces were hidden, so you couldn't tell who they were, so they could discuss.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Anonymously, yeah.
That's a great idea.
That's what they did, and that was sort of how one person said. It was almost like there's that political clip with Charlie Clerk where somebody said, "When do we get to use the guns already?" And everybody was like, "Oh," and he's like, "No, I mean seriously though, we're living in, under commercial and medical fascism. Like when do we get to use the guns?" It was just like full mask off. Like, why don't we say, and that was, and I've heard Christians express that, right? Like it's like this life is the appetizer type mentality, and they're really just want to get to the main course already. So I just want to say, like, I agree with that, but I wonder if, both these things aren't true, right? Like in other words, there's still an obsession with, I think what Niddy's talking about is the obsession with the dream and the obsession with getting there, the exception with the anticipation. Well, what I think you're referring on is the time spent critically thinking about what the reality of it is, right? And
that's
I think those can both be completely true, right? Like the.
Let me. let me explain my thought
It's like
process.
you're being obsessed with what marriage is gonna be like, and getting married and having a family, and spending zero time thinking about what you're, dealing with the person, and
What's your
making
plan?
sandwiches for lunch for your kids or whatever's actually gonna be like on a day to day.
So the way my brain works, I live in a very nice house, which I hate. So when I chose this house, my realtors didn't find this place. I found it. When I chose this place, I'd never owned a home before. I'd lived in apartments, so there's a lot of things I didn't understand that when I go to buy my next home, I'm thoroughly going to be aware.
Right.
My home is typically like an open concept kind of home. This is a stupid idea, right? It looks good on paper. It looks good to walk around in it. Well, air condition it.
Heating, yeah, it just is.
Heat it.
Yeah.
You will be paying. My neighbors have it worse than I do because their house is roughly the same size, but it's even more open.
Yeah.
Well, look, 100 years ago, people had it figured out. Well, these things called doors to close rooms off from one another, pocket doors built into a wall, fantastic idea. You only close it when you need to, when you're trying to contain an area or sequester one from another. Fantastic idea.
Right.
The bathrooms in this house, 2 of them didn't have doors on them.
Right.
I go outside, I'm like, see these trees? There's no planting here. There's no planting here. These are pine trees. They drop needles all year round. You will never keep this yard clean unless you wear yourself out doing it. Never. I can just show you one thing or after another. See how these trees are leaning? It's because they weren't staked.
Right.
They didn't have something there holding that tree upright. They didn't have cables pulling it so that it would grow upright. I can just show you one thing after another. The pool is shaped like a kidney or a sandal rather than a rectangle. So every time you put a pool cover on it, you have to cut a weird shape in it, and it scrapes away the little bubble things and causes it to degrade, and then those bubbles fall into the pool. Because one idea after another, when this house is being designed, no one said to the guy, here's why that's not a great idea.
Right.
Here's why that's not a great idea. So when I walk into my future home, or my fiance and I, when we're shopping, I now have some idea, not all the ideas, of what's good and bad. I understand some things I didn't understand just showing up the first time and looking and being wide-eyed and saying, okay, it has the space that I want. It has the type of spaces within it that I think I want. The yard has this, whatever. My garage, it's the size of a 2-car inside, but it only has a door for 1 car. Again, one stupid idea after the next. And I say very kindly, my home was designed by at least one idiot. So when a person examines their faith, if you will.
Yes.
If it's the only one you know, or is asked, when was America great?
Right.
If it's the only country you know anything about.
Right.
You likely will fail in your answer. There are other people who could come along and look at what you've said and understand shortcomings that you don't begin to understand. They will understand your hypocrisy. They will understand your lack of experience. They will understand your lack of direction, right? You don't even know what you're striving for. Are you trying to make it to heaven, which you can't describe to me beyond a sentence or two? Are you trying to make it there so you don't make it to hell instead? When you read those ancient apocrypha that go along with that are included in some Bibles, you'll see where hell is located and where it is described. It is a place on earth, right? It's told you go here, there are these holes in the ground, and that's where these bad angels go, and they're to be imprisoned and all that stuff. So when you hear me say Jesus and his disciples are live action role playing, it's because they had access to those apocryphal documents too, some of them. And that's where they're getting their leave from. That's where they're getting it in the Bible as well. And they're just cherry picking. And they're supposed to be the group of people who are alive when the end comes.
Absolutely.
don't know about that, it means something completely different when you read it. If you don't have that understanding, I think many of us, when we have read the Bible, we understand, wait a minute, is it possible that this prophet is misunderstanding what this other prophet said?
Right.
Is it possible in 200, 600, 800 years, the meaning of this has changed? You better believe it. But if they're going off what their grandpa told them, because it's his opinion, then that's where their perspective might not ever go beyond. It can be rigid. It's just what he said. It's just what he said. My uncle, who died last year, probably was pretty sure he was going to heaven, suffering the last few years of his life. Still prayerful, but suffering. His reward is up there. His reward will come. Jesus comes back. He's resurrected, and they'll fly away, old glory, and be happy and healthy and wonderful in heaven, spending time with his mom, who's an outstanding person. That'll be heaven. It's not that way. He should have done something about his suffering, but he didn't. He's waiting on God to do it. Billions are.
Christians are literally like they're always trying to like take over stuff, and then they're turning the rest of us over. It's something I've been dealing with interpersonally with my family lately, but it's this idea like they, in this cruel twist, trust that God will deal with the rest of us. Like, if God wants to solve societal ills, God will take care of it. When they don't realize that, like, they're consuming more and more and more and more and more of our resources and institutional power and stuff like that, and there ironically is no God. So it's a weird fatalism. They're manufacturing the end times that they use to confirm their end times narrative.
Well, the Bible is like a Swiss Army knife. There's a fork, there's a spoon, there's a can opener, there's a knife, there's a file, that sort of thing. It's whatever they need, they can go to it and pull it out of there, right? But I could take you to places where it talks about how those who destroy the earth will be punished. You're never going to hear him say that, because it's not what they need to get people in line with their message. Again, could I say to could I go before Congress and say, how many of you are Christians, and have them raise their hand and say, okay, well, Jesus says, sell all you have and give it to the poor. So tomorrow, all your wealth will be forcibly stripped from you and donated to the Social Security Fund.
Right.
By the way, when you are eligible for Social Security, you can have some of it back. But just know you're basically working here for free. We'll provide room and board and meals for you and transportation. But get used to the suit you have, because you're not buying any more. Your money will be going into the fund because you are helping the poor, just as Jesus said, and you're better people for it.
Right. Right.
Are they quitting?
Yes.
Are they going to accept what I said and just go along with it?
Nope.
No.
They're going to be on that give me liberty or give me death.
No, you still have liberty. You just don't have money anymore.
I don't think you heard me wrong, my friend. Give me liberty or give me death. This is America. Money and freedom are
the same.
The same.
Money buys you all the freedom you can stand to have. It truly does. I have a couple of wealthy brothers, and one has done a lot of travel. They've both done a fair bit of traveling, but I've probably done more traveling than both of them. And they've gone to places where they have perspective, where you see like holy crap, I thought we were poor growing up. There's no way we were poor compared to some of the stuff that the three of us have seen. You know, I've seen skinny cows, and poor people and people drinking out of a ditch that someone just a little up the ways is peeing into. Like, you get perspective on what poverty is. And so, I don't know, I guess it goes back to the wealth of experience, what that teaches you. They also can pick up and go to, like, I've been to Cap Jaluca, which is this resort in the Caribbean. Holy crap. You want to talk about a beautiful place. It's gorgeous there. You could go to any number of countries where the beauty of it would blow your mind. You know, you think you've seen pretty places here, and you have in the United States, but you can go there and you'd think it was CGI, like it's out of Avatar, that new water one that they have, the Water World Avatar, whatever it's called. There are places like that on Earth. When you see that beautiful sand and the teal colored waters and all, there's places like that right here on Earth you can go visit. They didn't have to do much to imagine that. Those places are real. So, you know, it's one of those things where
yeah, it's really
I'm kind of forgetting where I'm going, but
oh well.
Suffice it to say, if it's sort of, I don't want to say this, but I'm going to say it. It's pretend.
It's pretend. It really is.
It's pretend. And I think stating that this group of principles, the biblical principles, represent you, and I should be able to see that in your life, right? Because the Bible tells us that. Well, you should be able to identify believers easily. I usually have to look for their sign that they're holding up these days because I don't see it in their kindness.
I think this has to be maybe a topic for a whole discussion, and could be related to, you know, some of what Niddy's doing. But I feel like, especially in light of some of the gaslighting and stuff that people playing dumb when it's convenient, I think we need to start talking seriously about religious people in our lives just pretending at this point.
Mm-hmm.
There just comes a point in time where those of us that are adults in the room need to start to have the adult conversations. That's how I feel about it, right?
Well, I think we have to say, like, okay, I'm an adult talking to an adult that has a different philosophical belief, or a series of different philosophical beliefs. It has to be said, we know there is common ground between the non-believer and the believer, regardless of their religious perspective. There will be common ground, but it's where we need to work out the differences. Or actually, better than that, we need to understand that there are differences and realize things can work out despite the differences.
But that's I think that gets back to what Uncle Bobby was talking about earlier, which is they deal in reality in every other area of their lives, and you know, let's hear what Niddy talks about, because I think, you know, this gets right back to cognitive dissonance. But I don't think you can work within a framework that's comfortable for these people to effectively address the problems of their beliefs. I mean, if you just want to have them around and be nice to them, I'd suggest don't talk about it at all, or at this point, I'd even suggest just playing along with them. Because I just think if your concern is their feelings and not challenging them, just don't even talk about football. But
I think it's a mistake not to challenge them, though.
Well, that's but that's what I'm saying.
I really do.
But I do too.
Yeah.
But I just think if you're going to challenge them, then you have to accept that it's probably going to be challenging. I don't know if you noticed that that's in the word, but what I think is people want to challenge people in a way that's comfortable, and you have to recognize when a problem is constructed in a way that's not possible. And at that point you become an agent of, you're part of the problem. Like if you're just going to sit around and say, I see a problem, but I won't say anything because that would make the person who's doing the problem uncomfortable. Well, now you're just part of the problem because you are providing the
Perpetuating it.
permissive structure.
Mhm.
And ultimately, people who have social leverage know that. You see what I'm saying? This is part of what I realize in the manipulation of my own family. What my mother is doing to me comes straight from my grandparents. She has learned from them how to use a sort of respect paradigm to justify not being challenged.
Mhm.
And it's a certain type of abuse that she kind of told on herself because I was around when she was not a young adult, but a younger person than she is now, dealing with it when I was growing up. You know, we done sat in the car and you broke down for me exactly how hurtful your parents' behavior was to you because they were so serious about their religion that they couldn't see how hurtful certain things they did to you was, you know, and it was, I saw your devastation. Now you turn around doing the same goddamn thing to me, right? And
I have a theory about that when you're ready.
I mean, go for it.
Sure. So I think a lot of, I don't know how many parents, I think often when I hear someone talk about a challenge they had with their parents that was ongoing, I think oftentimes a parent will pick a child in their family to, I'm going to make it tough. I'm sorry. Abuse. And all the things that they saw their parents do that they felt were inappropriate, they will do to that child. I think there's a reason for it. What that person is trying to do is reconcile behaviors they could not understand or forgive from their parents by what? Carrying out those same punishments or restrictions on someone else that they love because they're working to understand, because my parents must have had my best interest at heart. Not necessarily, no.
Right.
They might have been thinking, it's true. It's true.
Right.
They might have been,
That's crazy. That's deep.
but
It's
it's true.
deep.
They might have been thinking of themselves and
Right.
what they wanted. We
Right.
all, a friend of mine 1,000 years ago, she said, I have someone I'd like you to meet. I know this woman that would be great for you. So we went to a party at this woman's house. She knew I was coming. My friend had talked me up, just like she talked her up to me. And we met, and I saw how this woman interacted with her child. And I'm like, that's how she's going to be treating you, man. And I felt so sorry for her kid. I'm like, you don't deserve this.
Right.
You don't deserve a mother who's so nasty.
Right.
And I had to ask my friend, what the hell made you think I'd want to be around someone like that? She did this, she was talking to her kid this way.
Right.
And my friend's like, I didn't even realize that. I'm like, I did. I pick up on that stuff, you know, not always, but that was easy.
Right.
And is it fair to say your mother's trying to do her best? Maybe.
Not anymore. Yeah, not anymore. No, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not there. I was. I used to think that, but now, yeah. But now I'm like, I've seen more than I wish. I see more than I wish I could see. I've always I see more. Yeah, I've always had that problem, where and you know, yeah, it's tough. But yeah. Let's jump back in the Niddy. I want to make sure we get through this stuff.
What I find is the case is that believers will say something to the effect of, well, I take this on faith. It may not make sense. The evidence for that particular claim may not be great, but I have faith. I trust it. I won't abandon this belief. For many, this experience is subconscious and reflexive. it often results in a doubling down effect. The believer is reinforcing it by a virtuous assertion that faith and trust without evidence is justified. The more consequential claims of religions are not the only ones that bring the condition of dissonance to believers. Dissonance in your faith can seem benign or inconsequential at first. Let's say we believe that left-handed individuals are evil, worthy of God's judgment. Our church and our regular media outlets tell us that these left-handeds, these lefties, are after our children. The lefties are going to mutilate their arm muscles to make them right left-handed and do left-handed activities. They're going to destroy society. Then a new coworker is hired at your place of employment.
Hang on, I gotta just get in on this real quick.
Mhm.
Damn, that's pretty good, Niddy. That's pretty good. I see what you did there. That's pretty. I don't know where this is going. Maybe I'll change my mind, but that's pretty good. I want to say something about it because I've been thinking about this with a lot of things we've been dealing with in our community. It's almost like a preemptive punishment. Here's how something like this works. So when I am left-handed, surprise, surprise, I'm evil and everything everybody hates. All right, so, and what would happen is when I was growing up, you know, they literally are taking stuff out of your left hand and putting it into your right, trying to force you to be right-handed. And it's a good analogy because it really sucks because as a child, you know, no matter what it is, when it comes to your fine motor skills, which hand you prefer to operate things. And so you're, whoop, nope, sorry, I'm trying to show you. This is the hand I do stuff with, so I don't know what you want me to tell you. But not only do people tend to overlook, like, the obvious sort of that they should accept the fact that, like my grandmother in this case, it was off my grandmother doing it, like my grandmother should just accept that I'm left-handed and stop ripping the spoon out of the hand when I'm trying to eat, right? That's pretty cruel, right? That's a pretty cruel thing to do to a child. But what often then happens is there's a motivation to continue the behavior or double down on it, and the justification is, well, it's going to be really hard for him to get through the world as a left-handed person, right? So I need to put them through this because the world's going to put them through this.
The world. Oh, there you
right?
go.
And
The world is
so
so cool.
there's a lot of like suck it up and deal that gets involved with being marginalized because a lot of times people think if they don't recognize the problem in and of itself, they sometimes will make it even worse by sort of insisting that you persevere something because it's something you're going to have to deal with. It reminds me of you know, like when I deal with things that I think are racist or biased and people are trying to convince me I'm going to have to learn how to go through the world without getting upset every time something racist happens. Like, yeah, I think I've figured that out by now. But also, yeah, I'm gonna get pretty upset when I need to deal with something, right? Like, grow up. I can deal with the dissonance of those two things, right? Oh God, there was another one I was thinking of. Oh, I had a court tell me in a situation where they thought I was essentially in the right, and they said to my family to their face, oh, the behavior I saw on the behalf of this police department was the worst I've ever seen, but I think probation might be good for Jason's health. Excuse you? Right, like so that's sort of great caught up in this left-handed thing because this happens with so many other things where people essentially tell us we need to toughen up or tell us we need to learn how to deal with something, and they use as the justification a problem. So like you know, I need to demonstrate thick skin about racism around them because I'm going to have to deal with racism more generally. So, you know, they're doing me a favor, right? But and people do think that way, and it's kind of this left-handed thing's a kind of innocent example, not innocent, but a less prejudicial sort of consequential example of it. Most of us learn to integrate into society as left-handed people one way or another. But again, we're always walking in the classrooms with that one desk in the corner, right down to the bottom or whatever. This is a fun one. Let's see where this goes.
You talk over lunch.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to. Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
In ancient times, it was thought that left-handed people were sort of had a demon or evil or less moral. And this concept is thousands of years old. Let me give you an example. So in Latin, the language Latin, right is dextra. Okay, right. So if you're to the right, it's dextra. The left is, and you'll recognize this word or the root word, sinistra, is left-handed. So sinister is where we get the word sinister from sinistra. So that's, I mean, it's ancient, dude. This whole left-handed prejudice thing, and trying to change a person to being right-handed.
Yeah.
I have a nephew. I knew this. I understood this. So I have a nephew that I spent a lot of time around when he was little, and I would do my best. To like hand things to him to his left hand, and he's ambidextrous because I want him, like when I have kids, I'm going to do stuff like that. Because I want them to have the advantage of that. Look, if you break your arm, you can write with the other one.
Sure.
You know, there was a time I blew out my shoulder, and I would have to like do this to get my hand to move across the table or pick up my hand. That's how right-handed I was. I'd picking up my right hand to go grab something.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is you don't have to worry about it. Left-handed people are automatically more ambidextrous than most people because so many things are done right-handed. And then there's all the things like I actually play drums right-handed because there's so many things that either by imitation or availability. So I play drums right-handed because that's how most drummers are right-handed. So the drum set is set up in a way where you play the hi-hat over here, and unless you're going to rearrange the entire drum set, which is often not convenient until you have your own, right, then usually by that time you've already learned how to play right-handed, and then I had to go out of my way to learn how to play left-handed, and I can play both ways. But even somebody who picks up a guitar, for the most part, you know, so many guitars are right-handed, so, you know, unless you start with somebody buys you a left-handed guitar for Christmas, if you just happen to pick up whatever guitar was laying around the house or, you know, somebody started showing you stuff after church or whatever, you know, by the time you develop anything, the next thing you know, and then again, like, you don't want to have to be the one person who can choose between the 3 left-handed guitars versus the, you know, 300 right-handed guitars, right? Because most companies don't make very few lefty models, right? Hendrix, most people don't realize, played a right-handed guitar strung upside down.
That's what I want to do with the guitars I have if I keep them, is because I can't play right hand. I can't. It's hard. So I have to switch. This is easier for me than this, you know. So I'll have to change those around on mine if I'm going to keep them. But I'm getting rid of so much stuff, I don't know if I'll keep them.
Same actually. All right, here we go.
You find that you share hobbies, favorite foods, lots of the same social values. You laugh about your favorite comedies and commiserate about the woes of your workplace. Then you see them take a note in front of you. You discover, in fact, that they are left-handed. The dissonance may kick in to a small degree. The coworker then shows you a picture of their family and talks about their charity efforts as a family. All the evidence that you currently have of this left-handed person shows that they are good, someone you could even admire. What are you to believe now? Believers may begin to question their churches or media outlets overgeneralizations of this part of the population. Others, and more often the case, will begin to have that doubling down effect.
Yeah, Six Spider. Chat, put a 1 in the chat if see if anybody else out here is left-handed.
Another belief to
see how many
resolve
other evils
their
there
failing
out there.
belief. My coworker is lying. They secretly are trying to ruin my life, my culture, my safety, my family. They don't really want to help others. Eventually, these new beliefs will affect the relationship. Otherwise, the contradiction will remain in the face of the believer. For those of us who no longer believe or are questioning, we may be starting to see this pattern of belief in tension with reality. When I speak with creationists, I ask them about modern scientific advancements, cosmological facts, the near certainty of the evolutionary process, or they conversely do the same to me.
Love.
When either side of our conversation makes an assertion, the other reflexively responds with an ancillary belief to reconcile the contradiction. Something like, only the devil would want me to believe you or want me to doubt. God is not wrong about this. You are. The millions of hours of research and the researchers are correct, but this person must not understand. You have an agenda, and my evidence won't convince you. There's something wrong with your heart. You need transformed. If you find yourself in tension with a claim from a believer, atheist, or a skeptic, my advice is that this tension is a good thing. The tension shows that you are at a point of your life potentially receptive to growth, to new information, to change. It is not a sin to abandon a false belief. It is not evil or blasphemous to demand evidence. Or,
Sorry. I'm gonna just Niddy, in spirit of Niddy being the DJ, we just gonna roll it back. Niddy, just bring it back. Run that back.
And my evidence won't convince you. There's something wrong with your heart. You need transformed. If you find yourself in tension with a claim from a believer, atheist, or a skeptic, my advice is that this tension is a good thing. The tension shows that you are at a point of your life potentially receptive to growth, to new information, to change. It is not a sin to abandon a false belief.
Now that's crazy. This is special, Niddy. I'm gonna give you that. This is special. Okay? This is all something everybody should pay attention to. Okay? You're in a place you should feel willing to accept, because the tension means you're taking in new information. And that it is not a sin to let go of false belief. That's really good. It's really good.
Well, even I don't know that there's a religion that would disagree with what he said there.
Right.
Because technically, this or that faith practice is wrong. Even yoga is wrong in the eyes of this or that other religion. So to abandon that and embrace the generally accepted principles of this or that faith and throw the other stuff out as detritus, great idea. You're on board, you're developing, you're progressing, and one day you may lead us all.
Yeah, and it's not blasphemy to demand evidence. It's really great.
It is not evil or blasphemous to demand evidence or to seek mental closure. If you see tension between
Can you
any of
pause
your
it real
religious
quick?
beliefs,
Real quick. So he said something extremely valuable there, where he talks about it's not blasphemous, I may be misquoting, to seek mental closure. I think the reason there are so many problems, why people struggle again and again, is they haven't sought and attained the closure. As many of you may know, I studied a lot of different religions, and I briefly had a brush with Scientology, and there was something that impressed me probably more than any other religion that I've encountered in my experiences. When they give you this test, and so I'll take the test. So they give you this test, and it says in there, if you don't understand something, stop. Don't move on until you do understand it. So if
hang on a second. I just gotta tell you something. It's
Sure.
eerie when you say that to me,
It's
because
true.
that is what my mother taught me. My mother,
Your
and
mom is the
it's
secret Scientologist.
and it's what guided me through my education in college. It is the reason I was always show up early. I read before class.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in class, usually in the front or in the front row, in the front. I'm the first to ask questions. I'm after class. I'm in office hours, because my mother taught me. Now, I did get scholarships, fortunately through higher education, but still had to pay a lot of student loans.
I did.
A lot of debt. But my mother, however it gets paid for. You pay for. My mother said I paid for my education.
Mm-hmm.
So that meant that if I, put the work in and did my part, that I should not have to go through something if I'm not understanding it. So I always she said, it's okay for you to ask questions, stop, slow down, because I'm here, I pay for my education, so I shouldn't have to, if I'm putting in the work, I shouldn't be going through a class not understanding something. And that's what guided me to become a scholar, because you take that attitude on the way in, right? And then it's working, and you work it out, and it leads you down the path. But yeah, it's just so ironic, because it's like starting with that mentality. Now I come full circle. But this is what I mean when I say it's just personally disappointing for me, because a lot of people have heard me tell these little stories, and it's almost, I know a lot of times it sounds like I'm coming at my mother, but I hope people are realizing, maybe even in real time, as I'm realizing in real time, the disappointment comes because I only start down this path with her because she built me to be like this, and she built me to believe that she would want me to come to her and be like, yo, Ma, I figured out we not understanding this. Let me break it down for you. I've learned. Let me share with you, right? And I'm getting her now doubling down on the other side, and it's been bewildering to me, right? And I'm trying to wrestle with it, and it's not that I hate her. It's just it's a genuine disappointment and frustration, because I'm like, I thought she would have wanted me to try to get with her on this, and I'm realizing maybe not so much, and it's part of growing up, right? Yeah, but yeah, man, I can relate to what you said. So if you want to keep going with that, go ahead.
Oh well, I like where you took it. I just think it's enough to. It was very powerful for me to encounter that in their literature, and this is right off the bat. This isn't something you're going to see 5 years in. This is in their introductory materials, that they're introducing you to this concept of really understanding what you're learning.
Yeah.
Really understanding sort of where you're at. But to pair that with Niddy's comment here, I think it is absolutely essential, and I don't always know how, to attain that closure, because when you do, you at least have a full, complete perspective. Not that that perspective can't be enriched later,
Right,
but
right.
it's sort of a workable module in your life experience.
Yeah.
So just want to
And
encourage
I think
everybody.
that is the problem with faith, because I think a lot of times people are really at a place where they're saying, usually for emotional social reasons, I don't understand, but I'll just go with it for now. All right, I don't quite understand, but I'll just go with it for now. I don't
That
understand,
is,
and then they end up so far down that road that they don't even see how far they've gotten just on that, right? And so then it's hard to unwind or whatever.
well, it's again, what did you learn in church today? And then you get that silence.
Yes. Yes.
What do you mean? You sat there
Yes.
for what, an hour and a half, 90 minutes?
And this is something that I learned about even as an atheist, would be crazy, right? Because I would go to like Bible study, and different churches vary on this. Like they do. Like I've been to churches that pay attention to the. I'm gonna tell you what it is. Ooh, y'all, we gonna get deep. Tonight at 9, you should be in Gather, because we have community meetings in Gather at 9 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. Why is that important? I'm ending this show at 5:30 because I got to go to my motorcycle club's weekly meeting. Why is it important? Because there's a lot of hit or miss in a community. Do we get together at the same time, sit down and talk about what's going on, right? I always say this, and I hope you take no disrespect, but I wonder if you can even confirm this maybe for me. When I sometimes talk about people like black dudes, like I say there's not a lot of black dudes participating in our community, like I often tell people I don't include my one black friend, because he's someone who, I don't say you're not a part of our community, but I mean in participating throughout the week, because you're not always available to be in these streams with us and watching so-and-so's panel discussion, and we were in so-and-so's stream for 8 hours the other day, and right, and so a lot of times you're missing what's going on from week to week or whatever like that, right? So that's kind of like so where I'm going with that is the reason I wanted us all to start getting together is because it's like now we have a set time where if we're missing stuff or our schedules are unsynced, we can kind of sit down and go, yo, what's been going on with you lately? You good? Everything all right? Or let's talk together, right? And that's what Hot Program's good for us for, right? But anyway, where I'm going with that is my church, like a lot of churches, is really all about, or church I was playing at, I should say, was all about connection groups. They want everybody to really be in a small group, to the point that the pastor could look out and say, hey, for those of you that are new, I want you to understand we have these connection groups, and they're like small group, and can I get everyone who's in one of our connection groups to raise a hand? And the point of this is you're going to look around and see literally like 80 to 90% of us are like this. Like we're all in connection groups. Where is this going? They all pay way more attention to what's said on Sunday morning. Why? Because they know they're going to have a small group discussion about it in a couple days. And because of that, it means they're going to socially participate in a way that they are going to want to, they're going to be not put on the spot, but they're at least going to be participating in a small discussion where maybe if they weren't paying attention or whatever, that's a kind of insecurity. Like, you don't want to be the person who either wasn't paying attention or totally misread, right? So they do pay attention a little bit more. And I'm just saying, like, this is real. This is, again, back to that science education, the learning about how people learn. This is active learning, right? People learn better if they know they have to have a small group discussion about something afterwards.
It's accountability. They know they're going to be accountable for
100% than they do if they just, they sit in the lecture, cool, and I'll just be back next week to sit in on the lecture. So where is that all going? That type of active learning makes a huge difference in whether or not somebody comes at the mentality of, I do need to have certain closure, I do need to follow things along, I do need to ask questions, I do need to go step by step through things and make sure I'm following along, versus somebody who can just sit there and say, well, I'll go with it for now, I'll go with it for now, I'll go with it for now. And then they're back next week. I'll go with it for now. I'll go with it for now. I'll go with it for now. Because as you say, those people are the people who you ask them, hey, before you turn on the game, I know you just got back from church. What was the preacher talking? What did you get out of today? What did you learn today in church? Right? And they're going, right? What I realized is it varies from church to church, because there are churches who, and I think it's usually because they're very active with small groups and Bible studies. And that's where I was going with this. Because again, I think the churches are doing intentional community very well. Many of them, I don't agree with the doctrine, but they're doing the intentional community part really, really well, because that's what they've got. And they know that's what they've got, right? But that tends to make the huge difference, right? Because those are the people who, through all of that experience, know, okay, I've got to understand this. I've got to be able to put it in my own words. I've got to maybe have a discussion where I'm going to relate it to my own experience. We might revisit those chapters in the small group, and then the small group leader might say, my one black friend, what do you think when you read the passage from Peter that we were, right? And you got to be ready for that, and you got to be ready for that moment, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, yo, this is big stuff that we're talking about, right? And I just think even in our community, some of us are realizing the difference it makes if you're participating in these discussions offline, off air, than if this is all just you're checking out the YouTube lectures. All right, let's keep it moving. This is great stuff.
And reality as you make new discoveries.
Also, Niddy, don't start making really tight, well-written, short videos, because that's algorithmic atheism, and it works, and it's effective, and it brings in new viewers. Niddy, you trying to grow and get good out here, huh? Huh, Niddy? Huh?
Well, I want to know why the avatar has glasses, but he's not wearing glasses.
I just can't wait till Niddy has a ton of subs and I can start calling him a grifter. You know, everybody's always telling me that I'm doing everything for the money and the views, and I just want other people to start getting it out here, so I can start. I just want to hurl the accusation at people myself, my one black friend, and I can't. Why don't you get some views, and maybe I can hear. Are you doing this shows for views, huh?
Like me, I don't see any books in the background. I don't see any books. He doesn't have any books.
That's why he doesn't get more. Niddy, come on, man. You trying to get monetized? You gotta put some books in there somewhere, like a Lego. Give us a Lego bookshelf. Come on, Niddy. That's a Lego bookshelf, man.
I do see a Daily Bugle. I do see a Daily Bugle in the background, and that can be taken as the last trump that the Bible refers to. Like, there'll be a change at the last trump, Daily Bugle. I don't know that that's what that's.
Very good RGB lighting, though. Right, gang, you got to understand it's YouTube, right? YouTube, it's not about what you say. It's about do you have the proper RGB, the proper scholastic background?
Yeah, and for those who would wonder, that's real stone in my fireplace. That's not digital.
It's not. This is not. It's not a green screen effect.
No, not green screen. And if I had green screen, it'd probably be that. I'd probably show that.
Oh, yeah, right. Just so you don't have to worry about the room. All right, here we go.
Believers and non-believers alike will sometimes need to admit the impossibility of full, exhaustive knowledge of all things. Therefore, since the dissonance is inevitable, embrace it. Don't fear it. Use the energy of the tension to learn something new, to love someone different than yourself. And if closure seems impossible, reach out to others who may be going through the same questioning. Through the same tension. On both sides of your issue. Find those who may have resolved their tension, believers and unbelievers alike. Don't fear the case they bring in support or against your most cherished beliefs.
Man, this is a thing that you know, I don't have necessarily always the most optimism with a lot of believers, because I think this is foundational to sort of the manipulation that they've been subject to and may now participate in. But this idea, if we could just lower the temperature of hearing the case. Now, again, this is important with faith beliefs. I don't think we need to be hearing out the case of somebody who's going to be gaslighting us about social issues. But I think when it comes to, you know, discussing that I wish, because this is where it started for me personally as a believer. Like, I was a believer, and I just thought there's nothing wrong with looking into different claims. There's nothing wrong with trying to understand what we know about Jesus from historical evidence, for instance. Like, I thought that was a very legitimate pursuit as a Christian. I thought understanding evolution, even if, you know, people claim that it conflicts with the Christian faith, I can't understand a problem to learn about evolution, to come to a genuine understanding of the theory and the evidence to support it. Like, how could that be problematic, right? What's wrong with learning the science of human sexuality? You know, I just teach this stuff. Do we is there research about gender and sexuality? Oh, turns out there is. What's wrong with reading it and understanding it? Right? Like, I do think that this message doesn't, y'all know me. I'm bad cop all day long, and 4 times on Sunday I'm here to super kick people in the face. But for real, I do think there's a real meaningful plea here to lower the temperature when it comes to just evaluating claims that I think is incredibly important. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I don't have anything to add.
Yeah. All right, cool.
So this was episode 1 of the Deconstructed's Guide, the Deconverted's Guide to Deconstruction, Dissonance. I hope you guys liked my writing. I wrote that this morning. If you think that I didn't get something right or something needs more explained, say so in the comments. I see a few people here this morning. So this was your little homily in the Church of Niddy. Praise be unto science. UC Love, you were first. Hi. Alarian, good morning. Good morning, buddy. Mark, from the other side of the world. Hey. It's good to see you guys. Good to have you here. So yeah, that's all I really had to say. It's short. I'm hoping to do leave a like in the tithing bowl, pay your indulgence of a comment later. It's going to be greatly appreciated. And if you want to earn Niddy's highest graces, tweet this stream about dissonance, share it on your platforms, or share it with someone you know is questioning or doubting, and get them to think more about that tension that they even may be experiencing. And I guess the last thing that I want to leave you with is that I hope to write things like this every week that kind of move through the process of what it's like to experience or undertake deconstructing your beliefs, especially with it will, of course, will be with an air and focus on Christian beliefs. So the first part of that in my mind is that dissonance, right? It is just the very notion of maybe these two things that I'm trying to hold on to can't coexist. And it might move on to feelings of doubt. which I believe are separate from the initial conditions of dissonance.
Can you pause it real
Or
quick?
that reflexive.
Now this is interesting. In my own experience, I guess I was lucky and maybe even strange because I didn't have the doubts. As I was reading the story about the Tower of Babel, reading the whole Bible through, and I got to the Tower of Babel, which is at the beginning of the book. There's no way. And I had to close the book and walk away. I'm like, this is not true. This just is not true. And as I came back to the Bible again and again, I could read sections of it and go, yeah, that's got to be allegory for something. This is not history. Again and again, I'm a person who scored high on reading comprehension, was in creative writing club, had stuff put in teachers' permanent files, or like, look at how this student shined, that sort of thing. And when I read, and I'm talking giving it a shot, giving the Bible it's a shot, it became so clear that this is the wrong thing to cling to. If I'm going to cling to something, this should not be it. Not that it is devoid of wisdom. That's silly. It has wisdom in it.
Sure.
But I was lucky, and I don't think most people are as lucky as me, where that day my brain was just like, yeah, this is not what it purports to be. This is not, no God wrote this. No God inspired this in terms of telling people what to put down. The thought of there being a God might have inspired it. I'll give them that. But it's not divine just because somebody says it was. Just because thousands of people for thousands of years has said it is, it doesn't make it the case.
Yes.
It doesn't. So I got really lucky that I didn't have much of a process.
Even that claim, right? I don't think it's really interesting, because we talked earlier about how there's apologetics in the Bible. I'm not sure if it was here on the show, but it was.
Yeah, it is.
About
there
how and so I always use the example that came up was the cleverly devised myths, right? Oh yeah, it was the previous one. We were talking about the historicity.
Oh, we do not follow cleverly devised myths.
And people don't realize that that's the salesman, right? That's their frequently asked questions, right? So somebody frequently clearly people were claiming that, and they had to respond to that. And it's the same thing with divine inspiration. I highly doubt the original authors claimed divine inspiration.
No,
right?
It was a grift.
They were just writing, they were whatever. And then once the authority or all of that type of stuff becomes into question, right? Like it's just a simple question, like how would they be able to write what happened in the beginning when there's no one around in the beginning? Well, they were divinely inspired, right? It's like that's, so it's weird how even the divine inspiration of the authors is totally missed as just some post hoc BS to overlook the fact that the people who wrote this clearly could not possibly know what they were talking about. Right? Like it's clear, it's impossible. It's impossible. Right? Like it's the one thing, think about science. Science will never do that. Scientists will never just be like, oh, da-da-da-da-da. We found out all this evidence, but we never claim to observe things we can't observe. We claim what we can infer based on observation, right? But religion literally is just like, oh yeah, no, let me tell you, in the beginning, da-da-da-da-da. Who the hell was there to remember what happened in the beginning?
Oh, well, it's just clear.
It's ridiculous.
God told Moses what to write.
Right, exactly. Like it's
you could read the Apocrypha; it'll tell you that God told Moses what to write.
Yeah,
this is how I made it, man. Here's how you do it. Or there's an angel that tells Moses, right?
Yeah, I did want to note Liz Allen's comment that Uncle Bobby talked about the friend who politely asked him questions as part of his deconversion. Yeah, it's great. Yeah. If you've got that kind of relationship with somebody and you're kind of gonna slowly play the long game with the pebble in the shoes, I'm here for it.
Doubling down effect, right? Where next week we can talk about doubt, which is apparently a whole ministry if you find the right Christian. Oh, McClatchy. So yeah, I hope to do this every week. Every Sunday that my family is at church, we will be hearing a homily from Niddy. Again, I hope that this writing was sensible and had a logical progression to it, and that you enjoyed it. So like, comment, subscribe, do all the filthy YouTube shilling that we all do, and I will see you next week for your Deconverted's Guide to Deconstruction, Episode 2, Doubt.
Why
But
is it
don't
not
doubt
called the nitty gritty? Why is it not
that
called
I'll be
that?
there, because I will. And that's Niddy. We'll see you later.
There is no finer outro.
It works. Man. Good shit, Nitty. That was a good video, man. Yeah, job well done, and looking forward to the series. And yeah,
why are they not called Niddios?
Niddios
instead of videos?
Yeah, exactly.
Niddy, that idea, you could have it. It's free.
Yeah, seriously.
I give you my marketing prowess. I volunteer.
The dissonance, man. I think there's like a sort of hopelessness to a lot of this without dealing with issues of epistemology. It's sort of like most people may or may not realize this, but most modern science standards focus on modern science education standards focus more on the nature of science and the scientific process even than the particular content, because that turns out to be the bigger issue. Like, before you stuff people with facts and evidence, you have to teach them, why do we care about, how do you use facts, and why do we care about evidence, and how do we separate good evidence from bad evidence, right? And so you can sort of do the rote memorization and regurgitation thing up into a point, but to create meaningful understanding, people have to understand something about what we might call the philosophy of science before they're able to really, develop a true understanding of its real value. And similarly, for a lot of people who just hear barking on one side or the other, or opposing claims, if they don't have a notion of how to assess and evaluate claims, then they sort of need to deal with that fundamental issue before they can productively work their way through the details and the nuance. And I think for a lot of believers, there's going to have to be some sort of understanding of cognitive dissonance before they can effectively address it, almost like the way a person that might be dealing with an addiction, or might be in an abusive relationship, or might be dealing with a mental health issue, often has to come to an understanding and awareness of that issue, often including substantive education in that issue, before they can then work through it in real time in their own life, right? And I'm just trying to give a big ups and say this. I don't know, but it could be a real wise move to sort of say, let's start with the gentle introduction to dissonance, because that's probably what a lot of the intended audience is going to be dealing with, or at least about to experience as they go through this process with Niddy. Yeah.
I want to just advise our viewers, if you find yourself getting to these conversations with believers, whatever their faith is, and you've had enough, feel free to walk away. Don't feel a sense of loss or whether or not I won that argument or I lost that argument. Don't worry about that. It's about really taking care of yourself, because that other person, you're probably going to forget about them eventually, unless they're a dear friend or relative. And if they are a dear friend or relative and they love you, then they should be willing to respect the fact that you're done talking about it. There's so many other aspects of life to enjoy that focusing on the religious question doesn't need to occupy much of your time. There's plenty of other things to be excited about and go do. So if that's where your focus falls, you can also let a person know, like, you know what? I love doing A, B, C, D, and E with you, but talking about Jesus and God or whoever, Buddha or, Hanuman, the monkey god or whatever, it's just not where your focus is going to be. And if they say, well, what about the afterlife? What about after you die? You can tell them simply, after I die, I won't be answering any of your questions.
Yeah. Yeah. There comes a time, I think of it almost like the Uncle Bobby Superman technique. It's gonna sound bad, but I give up on people. And I think it's okay to give up on people. I think it's okay to just say they're where they're at, and I'm gonna deal with, and sometimes that does mean accepting a unresolved or antagonistic state with an interpersonal relationship, like, in the sense that, like, even like friends come and go, right? And you can sometimes just say, hey, I had, we don't see eye to eye on this, or, so and I, or so and I are just in different places right now, and fine. And then you're gonna do what's best for you, and they're gonna do what's best for them. And if, that's not necessarily the same thing, then so be it, right? But you don't have to win everyone over to your side, right? You can just accept that, hey, so and I play for different teams. Like, I don't know what else to tell you, right? Like, I just don't know what to tell you at the end of the day, right? And that's okay. Or it could just be, just something like, we just don't go there, or we don't deal with this personal thing. Because sometimes I think people intend to win you over with the attrition, right? And
that could happen, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, look, I've made my case. You know what time it is. If you don't, if you don't want to do anything with that, that's okay. That's where you're at, right? That's cool. All right, fine. I'm gonna move on. You can move on. We can move on. You know what I mean? Type of situation. Now that's not always. That's not always what MLK would call a positive peace, right? We haven't actively worked through the issue. But again, sometimes we just got to do what we got to do, right? Like, I think about, let's just say the abortion issue or reproductive rights. We had Roe v. Wade overturned. We have this thing going now. Now they're trying to go after the pills people use. At some point, I think what you're saying is you don't have to convince everybody to support reproductive rights the way you or I may particularly want them to, right? But you can still, we gonna still do what we got to do to do what we feel we need to do. We're going to bring along who we can, win over who we can. And if somebody can't, we're going to say, well, look, I I still think this is what needs to be done. So I'm going to go over here and do this. And it's really unfortunate I couldn't, get your support right now. But it is what it is, right? Like
I can settle the abortion argument real fast. If you are anti-abortion or pro-life or whatever, you know what? You pay higher taxes. And you the moment you decide to vote that way, like we take tomorrow, we do it. We get your opinion tomorrow. And if you want those children to be born, then their parents, when those children are born, can apply for money from a fund that people like me who are pro-life, we pay into it.
Right.
We don't get a choice.
Right.
Right? You either tax me every time I buy something because I show my card, or you just take it right out of my paycheck. I pay another 1% or whatever in taxes because I'm pro-life. I don't think anybody should be getting an abortion unless, there's some situations where
but you don't think
I
that
have
should be illegal, do you?
No. But
you got to be clear when you say you're pro-life, because people think that means you should. Okay. You believe they should be banned, right?
I generally don't agree with abortions, but I'll put my money where my mouth is. Okay. I think that anybody who refuses to do that, again, if we could take my little vote thing, my social experiment, we're going to pay more because we disagree with it. So all those mothers who say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and have this baby, but I don't really have the money to take care of it, they can sign up for that fund.
Right.
And all we pro-life people pay into it, whatever you want to call it, pro-life or whatever,
right.
pro-birth.
Sure.
We all pay into it. And you have to renew every year. So for 18 years, you're locked in. So next year, if I agree to it again, then it's 18 years from that date, 18 years from that date. So I'm always agreeing with it until I get sick of paying for it. Then I disagree with it. And I got to wait 18 years before I don't have to pay anymore. But if you made people pay for it, you'd be amazed at how many people would be walking away from trying to prohibit somebody else from getting an abortion that they want, desperately need. I'm not a person who's blind to the fact that some people desperately need that.
Right.
I've had dear friends that have had abortions.
No, we don't. I don't even want to go there. Yeah. I'm just okay, trying to. I'm trying to make the point is that there comes a time when that if people don't agree on something, they don't have to keep. You don't have to ruin. You don't have to keep trying to hash it out. You don't owe that. Like you're saying, you don't owe that to a person, but you can just go ahead and. We're gonna do what we got to do anyway. Like, there's just a lot of. I'm not gonna sit around trying to force everybody to do what I think is right. I'm gonna have a conversation about what I think is right, and then I'm gonna go do what I think is right anyway. And if you don't want to be on what I consider the right side of history, or if you don't want to step up and do the right thing, or if you're not satisfied with our inability to convince you about what you need to do, then I just think all of that's on you. And at some point, if I've got to act against what you consider to be your interest, then it is what it is. Just because you're gonna do the same thing, right? It's just what I mean. Like it's kind of it's like where I've come to be, for instance, with my own members of my family. Like I think if the rubber met the road, their loyalty is to Christianity above all else. They will act in a way that shows that, right? And my loyalty is to bringing the Christian empire down at all costs, and I am going to act in a way consistent with that. And honestly, I hate to say it, but sometimes I just have to accept that I'm probably going to lose.
Oh,
it's like I was on a basketball team, right? That in middle school, like we were a very small school, we lost every single game we played. We won one game against another very small Catholic school this is the place I ended up going for high school, but it was because they had to play in another tournament, so they canceled their game with us, so we won by forfeit. But we were still the basketball team for our school.
Yeah.
And it wasn't our fault that we had 50 students in our class, and we were going up against schools with thousands, right? And kids that played on AAU travel teams and all of this, right? We still had to show up to practice every day. Our fans still came to watch us, and our parents and all that. We still played our heart out, and you sometimes recognize we may be outgunned, we may be outnumbered, but we're gonna do what we gotta do. You know what I mean? It was a very important life lesson.
I think for the idea of Christianity sort of losing its grip, that's already happening. Just from this, I'm one of these people. I think the internet has a lot to do with that. Because kids can sit there in church. We've heard this argument before. Kids can sit there in church and fact check what they're hearing in real time. It's a shame that adults don't do the same. And I think I have a friend of mine who's an atheist. When her daughter was quite young, she sent her daughter to religious school. And I said, why did you do that? And she says, well, I wanted her to have the morals. Now, I have huge respect for this friend. I said, what morals did they give her that you couldn't? She got real quiet. I guess none. Like, precisely. The idea is that, I guess it's like communism. That's the store that has morality. You go to the Christian church, they've got morality there. You'll find it there. But if you go next door, you might not find it, or it's a different brand and it's not as reliable. It doesn't last as long, and it costs twice as much. So Christians benefit from the wonderful reputation of being really this source of endless morality. If you watch Cult of Dusty, if you watch Cult of Dusty, or you watch these prosperity gospel preachers, you'll see, well, it isn't always the case. Yes, you can go to my neighbor's church that he leads, and you can have a wonderful time there, get solid lessons that you can apply to your life from a guy who's had his crap together for a long time and is my lifestyle hero, and he knows it. He's got like the amazing life. But he got that because he and his wife worked very hard. Maybe he was Christ-centered and that had a lot to do with it. But he and his wife worked very hard for where they are. I'm not someone who can wave that away. Although I know people who are multimillionaires who would wave it all away and give Jesus and God 100% of the credit.
Yes,
even though they spent decades working their butts off.
Right. Yeah, it's a shame. Liz said that's why evolution and comparative religion are so threatening to a lot of Christians. Absolutely. All right, gang, let's get on out of here so I get to church and my one black friend going. Appreciate you, man. It's been really good. And do you have any closing thoughts?
I do. If you are planting a garden, don't be afraid to use gardener's felt if you have issues with weeds growing. Like I have this infestation of yellow nuts edge growing in my yard, front and back. What I would say is just put gardener's felt down, cut a hole in it, dig a hole, plant your tomato or whatever right there. Don't worry about what the gardener's felt looks like. You can use mulch if you want to, but you don't have to. And just let that one thing grow and let the yellow nuts edge never get a foothold. Yeah. I'm serious. That's where I'm at. Because after here, I'm going right out to the yard and work on that.
Got you. All right, gang. Appreciate you. As always, be good to yourselves.
And each other.
We'll see you next time.
But not yellow nuts edge.